Make sure you check the debris at the bottom of your sump pump. That was our problem, and I'm going to show you how we fixed it in this video. Knowledge is power, and unfortunately plumbers are going to hate this video, but make sure you check the bottom of your sump pump because there could be a lot of dirt, and that could be the problem and why your sump pump is not turning on. That was our problem, and I'm going to show you how we fixed it and tell you all about it. So follow along. Our sump pump never comes on, and we are trying to trouble.
Did you get that?
Yep, a little bit. Make sure you tighten the hose back on before you plug the sump pump back on. Otherwise, it explodes like a geyser. That just happened. We've lived in this house for 4 years, and it's just never drained. It's always full of water. I'll show you.
Our problem is it's just never getting to the angle that we need it to get to turn on. By the time it gets up to the point where it's like equilibrium of pressure, it's not enough to make the thing go off.
Can I unplug it? Our floater never gets high enough or never to the right angle to trigger the sump pump to turn on by itself. When we manually do it, it works, but we've never been able to actually get it to work.
I think this is keeping it tight. I don't know. I guess would be to scrooge this.
We're adjusting the switch on the tether float so that we can hopefully get the sump pump to work automatically as it is designed when it gets filled up.
Let's see if we got any water on that.
Otherwise, all the water around our property is not actually going into the sump pump. The drains are just sitting there with the water pressure. It's gonna take a long time.
It might.
Is the bag moving?
It should be.
But I mean, like, it looks like I can actually see it maybe.
You should be able to.
What's on top of the bag? What's that like?
Yeah, this shouldn't. This is, I don't know what that is. This was before. I think I just turned this.
Blows my mind at how simple this fix was. Plumbers are gonna hate this video. It's something that every homeowner should know, and it'll save you hundreds or thousands of dollars. And all you need is a hand shovel and a shop vac, and this video, of course. So go ahead and hit subscribe to see my other videos where I show you things I've learned that all homeowners should know. There's so many things that are just not that hard where you can save a lot of money, okay? I'm gonna show you how. I'm also gonna show you a link to Amazon where you can buy a sump pump for $200 if you wanna replace it yourself. Here's our sump pump, which is currently dry. And we actually had we called a couple of professionals who came out and they checked the wiring, they turned it on and they said, oh, it works, no problem. And we tried to explain to them that no, it never actually comes on. And they did not seem to believe us, or they just said, oh, it hasn't rained enough. Well, it never ever came on. So then we were so confused. And we noticed like a few months ago there was some debris and we cleaned a little bit out. It was a pain because as soon as we cleaned it out, water rushed back in, but it didn't really do anything. So we didn't think that was the problem. We decided to just replace it. So we bought a new one off Amazon. It was 200 bucks. I was very shocked at a $200 sump pump on Amazon, but it's true. The link is below. Go ahead and click it if you want to replace it. And if you have a pretty standard sump pump, from what I saw was it's pretty easy. You unplug the old one and then you put the new one in there. So, but again, we didn't end up replacing it. So I would recommend going to a different video for the actual install. This thing probably had like 10 inches of dirt, okay? Trial and error, lots of YouTube videos, just working on this with my husband. I thought it was unique to us, but I don't think it is. I think it's a very common thing that's happening to people, is that either the previous owners did it themselves or they called a plumber, was they came out and replaced the sump pump. And what they did was that they cut the pipes. And I'm gonna do a diagram in a second to show you what it is. But see, the old sump pump was like, it sat like 10 inches off the ground. So whenever they installed the new one, they had to have cut the pipes to make it fit because the pipe would have been too long. And so it's just like blows my mind at how simple this fix was. And I'm gonna show you. We had 2 people come, video chatted someone, and no one told us this. I'm just like so mad. How did no one tell us this and it's so simple? I'm gonna tell you so you don't have to figure it out the hard way. And it may not be your problem, but it might be. So hopefully this helps you out. Okay, this is how a sump pump works. I'm gonna show you what ours was doing and what yours is supposed to do and why it's important to check the bottom, okay? Again, this is so basic, so easy, and I'm mad that 3 professionals did not tell me this, okay? YouTube, I had to learn some stuff from YouTube and it was super helpful and that's how I learned. So make sure you check the pit of your sump pump, the hole, check the bottom of the hole, okay? That's step 1. If your sump pump's not working, check the bottom. You should be able to touch or see the bottom of the pit, whether it's gravel, whether it's bottom. Ours had like 10 inches of dirt. We didn't know that was a problem, and neither did 3 professionals who came to check it out. They turned the plug on, they plugged it in and they turned it on and they were like, oh, it's working. And we were like, but it's not. It never comes on. Okay, this is how a sump pump works. That is the hole right there, okay? So water in, water out. That's the point of it, right? How the sump pump is basically a toilet, from my understanding. Probably it's all you need to know too. So that's the pump. Then you have this little floater, okay? The floater is like it's just like the floater in the toilet, okay? So you have the floater. This is the floater. Now, what happens is when the water comes in, okay? We're gonna make the water blue. Water's filling up, okay? Let's see. Water's filling up. So what's gonna happen is the water is going to push the floater up, okay? So then the water is going to keep rising. And so the point of the sump pump is to keep the water from overflowing and flooding your basement. Maybe there's other reasons, but that's the only reason I really care about. So as the water rises, okay, the floater also rises. It's like that, ever heard the saying, rising tide raises all ships? It rises all floaters. Raise your fellow females and homeowners and friends up. Everyone, rising tides raise all ships. It does not hurt you at all to teach other people things. It only makes everyone better. So, the floater goes up. When that floater goes up, it turns the pump on, which then drains the water out. Or maybe the water comes in that tube. I don't know which one it comes in or goes out. I can tell you the point is when the float goes up, the water pushes it up, the float turns the pump on, the pump pumps the water out. That's the situation, okay? That's how it works. Our sump pump, here we go, I'm gonna draw this. Now, we're gonna use orange for dirt, okay? The orange for the dirt. We had about, again, this is the hole right there. That's about how much dirt we had in that hole. I don't know where it came from. We only lived here for 4 years. I don't know. It was just there. So, what happened, my theory, is that, the pump was sitting on top of the dirt, okay? I don't know who did it, how it got there, why, but some clues were that this pipe going out had been cut. This pipe right here was way shorter than the pipe we have now. So clearly someone had to have cut it. When they placed the pump on top of the dirt, they found that the old pipe was too long, so then they cut the pipe to fit the newly placed pump, which blows my mind because how can you know how to install a new sump pump and how can you know how to do all that and not know the basics of cleaning it out? Like, really? Okay, so then we have our floater. The float was essentially like hanging down, okay? The float was down there. So what was happening was the water would rise and rise and rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, rise and rise and rise. So it would push the float up, but it would push it to like right there. So it would push the float like right there. So whenever the pump has to go, or the float needs to go like a certain level higher than the pump for it to trigger. I don't know the exact numbers, but I can tell you that our float never was pushed high enough so that it would trigger the pump to turn on. We could manually turn it on. If we pulled the float up, it would turn the pump on. So we were like, okay, it works. But the water never pushed the pump up high enough. And I don't know how the basement didn't flood because the water would just sit in there at like right there. The water would just, we like always had water in there. I don't know. And we couldn't see down and we didn't see down in there. I didn't know it was so bad. So yeah, so again, like we were like, after all these professionals told us, we don't know what's wrong, it works. We're like, no, it never turns on. Water just sits there. And they were like, I don't know, it was so dark you couldn't tell. So we were like, whatever. We're like, fine, we're just going to replace it. So that meant pulling the whole thing out, which we started to find out was not going to be that difficult anyway, especially when you can find a $200 one on Amazon. It's crazy. After we pull it out, there's a ton of dirt down there. Like it's just, there's so much dirt. So after, I'll show you how much dirt we pulled out, okay? We're gonna go outside. I'm gonna show you. You're gonna need a shovel, because we start in a shop vac. We started with the shop vac, but it got too clogged. So definitely need a shovel and a shop vac. Probably a hand shovel. But this is how much dirt. All this dirt, I know, our yard's a mess. This dirt, do you see that? That's what was in our sump pump. Now you can see it is all the way to the ground. Now we're gonna fill it with water. Okay, I think one more. Okay, let's see if this is enough water to trigger the pump. No. Still not. Yeah. The buckets I tried did not work, so we ran a hose outside and it's filling up the sump pump from the drain, and we're almost there. It looks really yummy, huh? It's about to turn on. Proof of completion. So it works and saved us thousands of dollars. So the moral of the story is check the bottom. Like a plumber, someone clearly, before you call a plumber and they put your sump pump on top of 10 inches of dirt and then cut the pipe longer, check the debris. I mean, honestly, it was kind of a pain cleaning it out. Like this was the second time we did it. The first time we cleaned it out, we shop vac'd it and then we dug it, and it was a lot. And the water kept coming back in, and it was just really hard, and we didn't think it was worth it. And so we gave up on that route, but I guess it was just really bad. Ours had a ton of debris, so much, like it took a long time, but you got to get to the bottom. You have to get to the bottom of the pit. Otherwise the float has nowhere to travel. So that's the moral of the story. Make sure you clean out your sump pump before you pay thousands to replace it. Yeah, so follow along to more. I've got a whole bunch of videos on this whole basement renovation and how we redid everything. And I've got a bunch of other videos on homeowner hacks and how to fix things yourself. And also how to DIY fun stuff like art and entryway and board and batten and our front door. So much stuff. So subscribe, check out the other videos on my channel where I show you things that are not that hard and that should be common knowledge, and that people shouldn't charge you thousands of dollars to fix. Or they fix it wrong and then you're stuck with a bigger problem. That's what would have happened here. If I would have called a plumber, they would have come in and replaced it on top of that dirt, cut the pipe, which they did before, and left me with the problem. They're not going to clean that out. That's what happened. Don't let them do that. You need to know this, okay? You need to know how your sump pump works before you call a professional and they take you for thousands of dollars, because that's what happened here, and we were able to save the money. I'll teach you things you need to know so that you know when you can do it yourself and when you need to call someone, and you'll also know when that work that they're proposing is not necessary or is not actually going to fix the problem. This is why knowledge is power. You know the situation, you understand that there's dirt, and I understand that a plumber has come in before and plopped a new sump pump on top and just cut the pipes shorter. Therefore, the problem still exists, but he did his job. He probably did a great job, but he didn't clean out the pit, and that's the problem. And then there's just so many other things that I've got videos on how to fix. Things that are either not that hard or things you need to know so that you don't get swindled or taken by the technicians and the trades, okay? They're definitely important and they definitely do a good job. You just need to know when to call them in, and also to have some basic understanding so that you don't get taken advantage of. Not that all people are bad, and not that they even were trying to be bad. They're just doing their job. But when you know your house and you know the actual problem, once you find the problem, that's when you can solve for it. You don't want to solve for something that's not the problem, okay? Knowledge is power, and unfortunately, plumbers are going to hate this video, but make sure you check the bottom of your sump pump, because there could be a lot of dirt, and that could be the problem, your sump pump. That could be the problem and why your sump pump is not turning on. And if you find value, please give me a like, and I would love it if you could subscribe and see all the other videos where I teach you all the things I've learned about being a homeowner and things that will save you money in the long run and will help you know when to do it yourself and when to call on a professional, and how to make sure the problem that's diagnosed is actually the problem, okay? So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to push back. Try to make sure you fully understand, because I really do believe in the good of people, and I believe in positive intent. Always trust the intent, okay? People are good. They're gonna fix what they can fix, but if they honestly don't know, then that's the blind leading the blind, okay? It doesn't hurt to learn a little bit about everything. So you learn a little bit about what's going on in your house, and then you can work together. You can collaborate with your professionals, okay? It's happened to me many times, and there is a line where you can do it yourself and when you can't. And that's where you fill the gap with knowledge on the situation, and that will help you determine the correct path to make sure the problem is solved. Because that's not what happened here. They called in a professional, and the professional came in and placed a sump pump on top of dirt, and then the float could not rise high enough, so the water never drained. All we had to do was a lot of manual labor. It was like 10 inches of dirt, but we dug it out, and then the sump pump went down to the bottom, and now the floater can rise and it works. A professional did that. They even cut the pipes to make it shorter to fit the newly elevated sump pump. It's a high-rise sump pump. We had a high-rise sump pump. It did not want to be high-rised. It wants to be on the ground. But now it works, and it was free, and now we get to return the sump pump to Amazon, and love that because I get accredited Amazon Fresh. And if yours is actually broken, it's really easy to buy one on Amazon and then check out another video on how to actually install it. We started to, and it was going to be pretty easy. Pull the other old one out and you put the new one back in. I mean, you got to connect the pipes. There's some technical stuff, but watch some videos on that. I didn't do it. I'm not an expert on that. I'm just trying to tell you, fill your mind with knowledge about a little bit of everything. Okay? Because then you can ask fully informed questions and you can get to the bottom of it and save yourself money in the long run. And it's wasting time and effort to fix something that's not broken. You want to actually fix the real cause. And obviously we all want to save money, right? Okay. Please check out my other videos because you'll learn a lot.